Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mental Health Awareness right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today, all the way from Australia, is Dr. Sean Botha, and he has the Listen program. What does that mean? Well, he says that his PhD research into sound and silence meant analyzing music using deep listening practices in the process, and he created a new analyst model for musicians. Whilst doing this, he created the Listen program because he noticed how in-depth his own listening process became. Without realizing, he was creating deep focus of his own neurodiverse brain. He had to do something with the work and wanted to make a difference. This is why he started to share the program with colleagues, family, and students. The benefits of the program are great and different for everyone. The program uses everyday sound around us and adapts itself to the needs of the individual. The individual gets to choose what they will listen in any given moment, and it means perception. And psychoanalysis plays a big role in how the individual play at the end of the seventh step of the listening process. We are surrounded by sound, noise, quiet moments every day of our lives and need to know how to navigate life through the sounds around us. This is where the program becomes extremely helpful for people from all walks of life, not just those with neurodiversity. He is from originally Pretoria, South Africa. I remember it well. I used to live around the corner from there. He now lives in Sydney, Australia. He is a music composer, storyteller, and researcher. And with the listening program, we're going to be talking far more into the depth of it. I don't think people realize actually of how much noise there is in silence, right? Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Now,
Uh,
silence is something that a lot of people don't know how to do. But when you're in a state of silence and you're centered and you're present, there is so much that kind of speaks to you, isn't there? Not just
uh,
from the brain, but from the sounds around.
oh, definitely. I tend to think of silence as stillness,
Mm,
more so because in stillness there is still sound. So it's like you get these small little. It's like it feels like diamonds sometimes, and sometimes it feels like little pin drops that you can hear, and it comes in all these different shapes. And those shapes, in a weird way, it talks not just to your brain, but it talks to your entire body. And I don't think we realize how deep it goes.
mm,
And so it really it is such a personal experience for everybody, whether they're aware of it or not.
mm,
And that's the weird and wonderful part about it, is that everybody's experience of it is so diverse.
mhm.
So you can't say that what I'm feeling and hearing is the same than the person next to me. And it's up to every one of us to kind of decide, what are we going to do with it?
How to use it and where to use it
Yes.
and why to use it. And, I think that
Yes.
we're in a world with so much chatter and so much static. It's whether we're in an area that's noisy or whether it's just the world itself is noisy. Right? We've got sound waves going across Wi-Fi all the time. And it's how can we find that center, that stillness, that silence, where we can be present with self? Because when we're present with self, that is when we receive. So are you saying that kind of the music is in us and that when we're present and centered, we're going to hear it in whatever frequency that needs to speak to us?
I actually like the way you're saying that, because the short answer is yes. The music is inside of us,
Mm,
and the music itself is sound,
mhm,
and that sound is coupled with the stillness, and that all of that has an origin, and the origin comes from that empty space, and that empty space is the stillness, and the stillness is the energy, and the energy is in the empty space,
mhm,
and then all of that kind of connects up with how we think about the beginning of the universe and physics. But that's a topic of course, for another day. But when you're looking at the connections between those ideas, it's about the space that sits between your heart and your lungs, the space
mm,
that sits between your lungs and your muscles, and what happens in that space, and what do we do with that space, and what comes out of that space in most cases is stillness that I do find a lot of people can be afraid of.
mhm,
And because they're afraid of it, they don't know what to do with it,
mm,
because it's like this, the space is moving. It's like it's vibrating.
mhm.
And that vibration, you 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 want to learn how to use it. And
Yeah.
when you're not learning how to use it, you're missing out.
It's tapping into it. It's kind of the heartbeat, isn't it? The soul beat. And
Yes.
when we get into that rhythm, I'm always talking about being in rhythm in life. And it doesn't just rhythm to the music of life, it's the rhythm to the vibration of life. And which channel are you riding on? We
Yeah.
can elevate our frequency and ride on a channel that is more transcending, more inviting, more illuminating, or we can go down a channel that can be really dark and quite fearful. And it's how do we tune into that channel where we can feel the music rather than hear it, feel the frequency in us. As he said, there's really no empty space. We call
Yeah.
it an empty space, but in that there is always energy. What is that
Yeah.
energy doing? Is it working for us or is it working against us?
Yeah, precisely. And I think that energy also is determined by what we feed it.
Mm,
Whether it's, noise, white noise, um, music, whether even food sometimes,
mm,
can throw that energy off. So it's it, it's like we're putting it on a scale.
mhm,
And but the scale, you can either completely tip it over, or you can make it run completely and utterly dry. And then when it's completely dry, what do you do with it then?
mm,
And
mm.
I mean, I don't have an answer for every question that I throw out there,
Right.
but I mean, one can ask the question of what do I do when I'm completely running dry? Because that means that you're getting into a burnout
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
And that burnout stage, that's a dangerous space to be in. So when we're looking at it from the perspective of sound,
Hmm.
our natural sound, our wildlife,
Hmm.
that can help to kind of recalibrate your brain and your body to a
Yes.
certain extent.
When we think about it and we truly step out of ourselves, our human selves, and step into being present with nature, it always has a rhythm out there, whether it's a bird tweeting, wind rustling through a leaf of a tree, just even the sound of complete stillness, no wind at all, the sound of the sun or the sound of the rain pitter-pattering. All of it has its rhythm and its frequency. And if we tap into the earth and what I call the cosmos energy as well, it resets us on a more equilibrium, doesn't it? It helps us kind of
Yeah.
tune in and connect more instead of being off kilter.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's that movement that you're talking about. We're talking about a binary rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear it in a lot of music, but what people don't realize is that what we're hearing in that music is the binary rhythm of the wind, the binary
Mm.
rhythm of the ocean, of your heartbeat, your breathing, because it creates this backwards and forwards swaying effect without
Yeah.
us realizing. And for some reason, the human body is quite interesting. Um, on the surface, I've heard so many people say, but that's noise. I can't listen to that. There's nothing in there.
Mm.
But at the same time, that same person will listen to a piece of music from the Harry Potter movie and going, oh, that was a beautiful piece of music, not realizing that the undertones of
Mm.
that music is exactly the same than the thing that they don't like.
Yeah, exactly. But
So,
why is that though? Kind of it begs the question, do they need the whole orchestra to connect? Or are they
yeah,
again not all completely plugged in order to get what is being said to them? What is being
precisely.
said?
Precisely. It's like I mean, it's I think it's a little bit of both.
Hmm.
And I think that that is what makes I think the human experience so interesting because it's such an individual and such a subjective experience that you know everybody goes on their own little journey of learning about life and how it works and how everything fits together. Some people get to a point where they can't go any further.
Yeah,
Some people don't want to go any
you're
further.
right.
And then there's others who will go to the ends of the earth, to the beginning of the universe to try and find out, but why?
Exactly. Yes.
So it's the
But
willingness.
it's a state of allowing, I believe. For me, I'm an inquirer. Now, I'm not scientific. I wouldn't understand the science behind it, but I feel it. I actually was involved with a quantum electric motor. Did I understand how it worked? No, but I got a feeling that it was important to get behind, that the reason for it being was significant. And I think very often we don't trust those instincts because, again, we're so busy listening to the static and the chatter on the outside. We don't let things filtration out. That download
Yeah,
we get, and then that feeling we get, and we don't know how to express it. We don't know how to articulate it because all this other static is conditional instead of us
yeah,
allowing to something that we don't quite comprehend, but we understand why.
yeah. I have to agree with that. I think it's also the filtering process that our brain is supposed to be able to do quite naturally. In a weird way, we cut it off at a
Yeah.
certain point on a day-to-day basis. We cut it off because we are so busy chasing
Hmm.
things that has no value at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And I think that is where I don't want to call it a problem, but I would rather call it, a conundrum, so to speak,
Hmm.
because
Well, it
I
weighs
mean,
us down.
yeah,
It weighs us down and it stops us from receiving what we really truly need to receive because we're
yeah,
oversaturated.
precisely. I mean, I find, and this is quite something that's happened to me quite recently. I've been doing a lot of interesting work, and I've been trying to step away from it. And when I mean step away from it, this is work that I've been dealing with since 1996. And I've been saying to the universe, look, something's got to change. This has got to stop. So I open myself up to new avenues. So what does the universe do? It throws a spanner in the works. And
Yes,
I'm going,
it loves doing that.
yes. And I'm like, okay, this is now the fourth time that you're doing this to
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
So if the universe really wants to get me out of this, then the universe can answer me now because I'm tapped out.
Yeah.
So I'm connecting in, and then the universe throws in something that's completely and utterly left field. So all you can do is you kind of you teach your body and your brain to kind of steer into that
Mm.
ditch and finding out but what's in that ditch that I need to learn.
Yes. Yes.
And then how do you get yourself out of it?
Well, you realize actually it's right the ditch because it'll have a rise somewhere along the line where you could get off instead of
Yeah,
scrounging to try and get off it at the deep level, right? Very often the answer is right there, but we become so panicked that we do the wrong thing. And instead of, okay, I'm in this deep tunnel. You know, my brother's an author, and I remember him one time writing his character into a pit, and it took him a week to write him out of it, right? Because
Yeah,
every time he went up, he slid back down instead of trying to look for something that naturally is rising, that he could go
yeah,
up, that meant the climb was less. But we
yeah,
complicate things. I'm in the deep, deep ditch. I don't know how to get out. Instead of turn around, look at your surroundings, keep moving forward until you see that rise. But we panic. And I think that
yeah,
stops us from progressing into actually receive, because perhaps it is that journey of getting out of the ditch that
yeah.
actually is the lesson in itself.
Precisely. You know what? I always, and I've said this to my partner recently, and that is something that Carrie Fisher says.
Mm.
Well, two things. The first thing she says, like, even when you're afraid, still do it. Just
Yes,
just do it.
yes.
But I think the other thing that's really resonating with me, especially over the last couple of weeks, is when she says in The Last Jedi, when she turns to the Rey character and she says, "We've got everything we need." And it just keeps playing over and over in my
Mm,
head. You've got
mm.
everything you need. Keep going, keep going, keep
Yes,
going.
yes.
And because that it's that keeping on going and trusting that what you have is enough to get you to the next point. And that's all energy. That's not the noise talking, that's
Yeah.
the energy talking.
Well, that's the point. You know, I call it the knowingness. And the
Mm,
knowingness for me is the wisdom that we download. It is our compass of knowledge.
yeah,
And it's wise knowledge. It's given to our heart in truth, where our heart really connects to it. Our spirit is uplifted into action, and our mind gets the clarity it needs when it needs it. And this is what I
yeah,
call stepping out of head. And then when
yes,
we step out of head and we trust that inner voice, that inner music, that inner frequency, that inner energy, take a
yeah,
deep breath and be present. All of a
yeah,
sudden, we know what to do. We don't need to verify, validate, or justify. We just
yeah,
know, right?
yeah. Well, this is the thing we just know. So, and that then touches on intuition and
Mm.
how do you tap into that intuition? And I think
Switch
that's where
channels.
I've well, this is the
Yeah.
thing. You want to switch channels and you want to so when you're trying to get back into that intuition stage of making decisions, it's about connecting up your brain with your body.
Mhm.
And how do you connect that?
Yeah.
What process can you follow to create a stronger connection between your body and your brain so that you can act on your intuition?
I would say actually more your divine body, not just the
Yeah,
body, because we've got to
yeah,
remember we're a vessel, we're flesh, we're an
yes,
incredible machine, right? But if we just operate purely from the human side and not the divine side, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, spirit, energy, source, it doesn't matter. It's
mm,
all about that divine wisdom and energy,
mm,
because we're spiritual beings having a human existence. If we stay purely in the human realm of thought
yeah,
and physical feeling, we can't really move forward. But when we incorporate the illuminant of the wisdom that is unlimited, then
yeah,
it penetrates into our brain and into our body, where now we believe we can and it is possible. It's the
yeah,
coding we need in order to move forward.
yeah. And I think that that coding that we need to move forward sits in that stillness.
Yes,
And that's
yes.
the thing.
And that's how to be still, how to listen. You did a wonderful talk yesterday on business at breakfast out of Australia. A great group, folks. If you want to network, meet wonderful people, I get to interview wonderful people from it. But we were talking about neurodiversity. And
Yeah,
nowadays we have more people on various spectrums than ever before, or just maybe acknowledged more. And
yeah,
also by realizing that people on any form of spectrum um, are each a gift. Then one of the gifts they have is focus and understanding on something. And they don't overanalyze. They are just trust what they're seeing, what they're feeling, what they're doing. Whereas
yeah,
we, in our intellectualism, keep
Yeah.
asking, but why? But why? But why? Instead, they're going,
Yeah.
I trust, I do. And so
Yeah.
I think in many, many ways, people on the spectrum have become our teachers.
They have. I do agree with that. I'm fine. I always had the belief, and this has been a long time. When I started my nursing training, and it was early on in the piece, and I always believed that people who are born with Down syndrome
Hmm.
and
I have a
other
grandson with that.
yep, I believe that they have a better grasp on life. They have a better grasp on how
Hmm.
the universe works, and they're far more intellectual and far more advanced in how they understand the world. So, and that goes, and I feel the same about people on the autism spectrum
Hmm.
and those who have ADHD,
Yeah.
because the way that they navigate energy and the way that they navigate very
Mm.
simple processes in life are far more, it's raw, it's
Yeah.
real, it's not tainted with
Mm.
ideals of others.
Yes. Yes.
So their ability to absorb information is so much better in comparison to our neurotypical counterparts.
Exactly. Because the focus is there. I mean, my grandson is turning
Yeah,
1, and a recent study came out that children with Down syndrome are 90% something, 97 something, uh, are happy. That is,
yeah,
it's 2 point something that are they're miserable. And I just look at him. He cries when he's hungry, he's hurt or frustrated, and then
mm,
it's gone. Right. Where my other
yeah,
grandson is, he's kind of auditioning for soap operas. He'll milk it because he knows he gets attention, right? Where the other one's
yeah,
in the moment, then out and happy.
yeah,
People with autism, depending on which spectrum, there can be more depression and anxiety there, but I think that is more to do with dealing with everyone else. If they stay
yes,
in their arena, and people who get them, who honor them for who they are and their frequency, they have a smaller arena, but people that look after
yeah,
them, and so therefore they don't get as angst. But we get angst and depression because we're trying to mix with everybody without focusing
yeah.
in our energetic vibration.
Yeah, look, I've been thinking about that this week actually. The fact that kids with autism and kids with ADHD and adults, the world have been trying to shove them into boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the cause of the anxiety. That
Yes,
is the cause
yes,
of the depression. We are not responsible for getting so anxious because we are trying to stay in a lane that works for us.
exactly. You're an example of how we should live. Why are
Well,
we
this
trying
is
to
the
be in
thing.
so many lanes? And we're doing
Yeah,
that because we're trying to please people. We're trying to live up to an
yes.
expectation. We're trying to step into this conformity and this condition that society has
Hmm.
dictated. And when you look
Yeah,
at that dictation, you look at that conformity, and you look at
yeah,
society as a whole, and it's screwed
yeah,
up. We have
yeah,
more depression, more anxiety, more anger, more hate, more violence. Right.
yes.
So I tell you folks, it's not working. We
No,
need to
it's not
take a tip out
working.
of the hat and go focus your energy in
Yes,
a particular
precisely.
area with particular people. Stop trying to be one size fits all.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all, and I think that's where a lot of the things that I do and say comes from the perspective of it's not a one size fits all.
Mhm.
Whatever you do, it needs to adapt to you.
Yes. Well,
It's
when
not
you're fine
about,
tuning it, it isn't just like one channel, right? It's
yeah,
your channel, your
yeah,
frequency where you're able to tune in, where you're able to
yeah,
hear. And that could be a
precisely.
different channel to somebody else. And we've got this is the trouble with digital. It goes from one to the other. When you used to have the
Yeah,
knob, You could twist the knob until
Yes.
you were into the right channel. And I think this is kind of
Yeah.
one of the problems with a lot to do with technology. It keeps wanting to push us into
Yes.
a channel, and we don't take the time to go, "Mm-mm, not my channel. I need to fine tune this."
Yes. And I think I found myself saying to my partner again this week that if you have a group of students who's on the spectrum and they are obsessed with Star Wars,
Mhm.
why aren't they using Star Wars as a teaching method or as a
Exactly,
teaching content? You're
exactly.
gonna engage those kids
So much more. And so
precisely.
profoundly. I mean, look at
Yeah.
how much wisdom Star Wars actually does teach us. Why
Well,
is it
this is
still
the
40
thing.
something years later still so popular? Right? And people are still
Yes.
loving it all from one generation, all generations, because it's so profound. You know,
Yeah.
these are not the droids you're looking for. May the force be with you. All of these things we're beginning to now understand what it means.
Well, this is the thing. So it will be interesting to see how life evolves as we go further into, 2020 and the 2030s,
Mhm.
because we need to adapt. We need to adapt and we need to move with what works because the old system does not work.
No, no.
And we need to help people to kind of go from the noise into the stillness so that they can recalibrate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For people who are not watching and just listening, he's got a beautiful Siamese cat on his lap right now. And you know, this is the thing is our animals are trying to teach us all the time. They know when we're anxious or when we need to pay attention, right? You know, that they just watch them and we
Yeah,
take take a feather out of their hat because quite honestly, they've got it. And I've interviewed quite a number of vets or people with a behavior, talking about behavior animals. And they say if an animal is playing up, look to what's going on in the family
yeah,
because the animal is a direct result of what's happening. So if the animal is stressed and starts chewing things, it's because it's stressed and picking up what's going on in the family. So that's an indication for everyone just to stop, listen in,
yeah, yeah,
and look to the core of the problem, not band-aid, core of the problem.
precisely. And in most cases, if you know what the cause is, if you remove the cause,
Mm,
you're resolving the problem.
exactly. It's never the surface. It's never the symptom. Right?
No,
You have to listen in order to actually
yes,
understand where it's coming from. And for so many
yeah,
people who do that, the message, it's like sometimes in different forms of meditation, people will suddenly get a message. Where did that come from? Why is it feeling
yeah,
so profound? Why am I feeling so connected to that? It could be something that happened to um, a family member generations ago because we pass on that DNA trauma and everything else through us, as well as past
oh
life.
yes.
And suddenly you're something has come to you. Well, it hasn't come to you to make you afraid. It's come to you to recognize what the problem is, and it's
Well,
inviting
that's
you
the
to resolve
thing.
it.
Yes. Look, and that is such a big topic. From a trauma perspective, that's almost an episode on its own.
Hmm.
Um, because there are so many people out there now with complex PTSD, and
Yes.
that has such an impact on how we are with one another as
Hmm.
well, how
Hmm.
we communicate, how we process information.
Hmm.
So that in itself has such a big impact
Yeah.
on stress, family life, and and then it in a weird way also determines how we're going to react to certain sounds and how we're
Mm.
going to connect with any form of stillness.
Yes. Because again, the the static is there, the channel is off. And so all you're receiving is that same old message that's causing the anxiety. In order to break
Yeah,
through that, it really is the changing of the channel to that
yeah,
frequency where, as you said, there is nothingness. I like to travel up into the universe, and people say, well, what's it like? And I said, it is everything and nothing all at once. You're not burdened by body.
Yes.
You are up in something where there is so much knowledge, but you feel so light and free, you feel like nothing. And it's really
Yeah.
hard, unless people have experienced it, to truly understand what that is. How can you be everything
Yeah.
and nothing? But that is the point, isn't it? We are everything. Everything is accessible
Yeah.
if we step more or less into our nothingness.
Yeah, so it's a bit about I talk about the five pillars around the lesson program, and two of them is that willingness to be more open to more possibilities, but at the
Mm,
same time awareness
mm,
of what is actually around you. Because if you can be aware and willing and open to what is happening, it makes it easier to then connect with what matters.
exactly. Exactly. That is the core of it. What
Yeah,
matters? What we think matters is really
yeah,
nowhere near there. When we truly connect with what really matters, and what really does matter,
mm,
kindness, caringness, compassion, love, those
yeah,
frequencies, those energies are
yeah,
so profound and illuminating, creative, and wise, that when we step into that, it's almost like a deep breath. We were talking yesterday in your talk about, is this in line with taking a breath? Because we say to people, take a breath, take a deep breath to center yourself and calm down. But you're saying
yeah,
this is going deeper and even
yeah.
further in that, into that consciousness.
Yeah. So when we're looking at breath work, in the context of my work, the breathing process itself is like you're taking, one or two steps, and now we're going to go a step further to the next step
Hmm.
so that you can take that sound deeper into your body. So the breath work itself is a small little component
Mm.
to helping
You
your
channel.
brain and your
Mm.
body to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
it's
I
quite
mean,
interesting.
on its own, it's great, but when you use it in tandem, it's
Mm.
like, a different form of meditation,
Yeah,
because instead of just meditation, kumbaya, whatever it is, I can't do that kind of meditation. For me, it's, I'm
yeah,
out in nature, I'm listening to nature. That is my
yeah,
way of meditating. Or even
yeah,
taking a drive. My mind is busy driving, it knows what to do with it. And the rest of it is just taking beautiful waves of whatever comes to me, just allowing, and in
yeah,
no particular definition, and which
yeah,
is wonderful, it's freeing. But in order to get there, we have to
yeah,
do the process of the breathing, of be willing to empty the mind. And that's the hardest thing, isn't it? The emptying of the
yeah,
mind, so that you can hear. It's like somebody breaking into a safe. Keep
yeah.
turning the knob until you've got that click. So, same
Yes.
principle.
Yes, it is like that, and it's when I think about that in the context of sound and stillness, it's about hearing the smallest sound inside a bigger sound, and how do you kind of which one are you going to ignore and which one are you going
Mm,
to listen to?
mm. And is there
And
anyone that you have to listen to, or is it just what comes?
it's about what comes. It's
Hmm.
about what's in your in your immediate environment, and what is happening in your immediate environment,
Hmm.
and how do you unpack that, and what what it's your decision what you're going to focus on.
Yes. Yes.
It's it's not what it's not about a person being dictated to,
Mm,
being told you have to do this. No, it's not about that. It's like throwing that idea completely out the window, because we all have different days and different experiences on any given day. So you focus in on what you need in the moment.
mm.
And if you in the moment need stillness, then step away from all the noise.
Yes.
Turn off your phone, turn off your television, go sit outside,
Mm.
because that's what you need on that specific.
Right.
day and time.
And then allow,
Yes.
right? Don't dictate, right?
Yeah.
Allow.
Yeah.
Because that's when it comes to you, is when you step into allowing. I surrender, I allow. And
Yeah.
that's when you open up to receive. Um,
Yeah.
I think when we talk about listening, for so many people, there is an art of hearing, and it starts with listening. And we don't listen to each other, and we don't listen to what's around us. I call it the cosmic nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and then the
Yeah.
cosmic 2x4, because the universe is always
Yeah.
trying to correct us and put us on a path that's going to serve us better. And because we're surrounded by the static and conditioning, and you've got to, and you should, and all of that, we're not paying attention. And then the universe comes along, gives us a cosmic 2x4 and goes,
Yeah.
are you listening now? And it's all about taking
Yes.
us in to here.
Precisely. And I think that's the thing. That's, I think, one of the big things that I have a I take I don't take issue with it, but it's more so my insistence. It's an insistence. Um, and in a weird way, an obsession that what you're listening to and who you are listening to and how you are doing it. It's how you're doing it.
Mm,
And it's about really paying attention to what you are hearing
hmm.
because you're not just hearing it on a superficial level, whether you're aware of it or not. When you're listening with all five of your senses, and you have to pay attention to all five of your senses when you're listening.
Hmm.
And you can't just stop at a superficial level because it's gonna get you nowhere when you
Yes.
stay on that superficial level.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to go deeper. And I'm finding myself saying that over and over and over again lately. It's that you have to go deeper because when you go deeper, you're creating a better connection with the other person, with your animals,
Yes.
with your environment. And that is where the magic happens.
With
The-
yourself,
yes.
right? You're stepping actually into your true frequent essence. We all have an essence about us. And when
Yeah.
that essence is coming from the heart and is in harmony with itself,
Yeah.
then that essence automatically precedes any conversation or even presence. That essence is so harmonious that it draws people to you. But to get to that harmonious essence, you have to
Yeah.
get out of your own way and be
Yeah.
willing to go deep without
Yeah.
shame, blame, dictatorship, or any of that. Just back to surrender.
Yeah. That you're right. It's like you're surrendering.
Mm,
It's like you're saying, okay, here's all the stuff that I'm dealing with. I'm gonna take it off my shoulders. I'm gonna put it down. I'm gonna ignore it, really. If you
hmm.
can ignore it, if you can completely get rid of it, great. And and basically just sit
Yes,
in that deeper level and allowing whatever needs to happen, you just allow it to happen. And I think that's where that's quite literally what I did in 2015 when I got my results back from my honors research. I had missed the high distinction by 3%, and that completely changed how I was processing
hmm.
the not just the results from the work, but how my processing of all of that took me completely away from technology. It took me away from even switching on the lights in the house. I didn't even want the lights on. And at some point, I found myself outside in the middle of the night, sitting in my driveway and looking up at the stars and going, this is all I can handle right now. I don't want to handle anything else. I don't want the noise. This is all I want because everything else is just too much.
Hmm.
And I think that changed how I approached my work going into my doctoral research,
Hmm.
because it was that stillness
Hmm.
that kind of fed, it just fed it all without me realizing it.
You were present.
Well, this is the thing.
Hmm.
And for some reason, my brain just went, can't handle it. Whatever else is going on, I'm gonna try and get rid of it now.
But it's also kind of when you remove yourself from it and you look at it and go, okay, I missed the honor roll by 3%. Big deal.
Yeah,
Why am I looking at it as something as a failure instead of
yeah,
looking what have I've achieved? And again, that comes back to societal condition. If you don't reach this, you are less than. And we can
yeah,
take that bundle and throw it right out, right out.
yes,
Nobody dictates your value. You know your value. Nobody else dictates it on any level. We're not our
precisely.
dollar sign. We're not our educational sign. We're not our sex orientation
No,
sign or economic sign. We're none of that. We are so
no,
much more. And when we choose to step into our beautiful essence, which is our gift, which is our
yeah,
instrument, then we
yeah,
really play it in a way that becomes illuminating for others. But if we step into this constant dictation of what failure, what success is, what importance is, what isn't important, then we are constantly going to be chasing our tails and going down the rabbit hole instead of being
yeah,
still with ourselves and going, what music is inside of me? How do I let it
yeah,
out honestly, truly, authentically, and
yeah.
unapologetically?
Yeah, and I have to say, that kind of feeds into a lot of the work that my cousin did. She, when I'm thinking of the stream of consciousness and how one can tap into that, whether you're a pianist, a painter, a writer, even, the hard sciences are such creative fields,
Mm,
that willingness to step into that space where you kind of allow
mm,
what's
hmm.
inside of you to come out and allow it to come to life.
Yes,
You're contributing something on a much deeper level into the universe, not just this planet
exactly.
itself.
Well, this is why this particular podcast genre is self-discovery wisdom. Yeah, it's the discovery of ourself and the wisdom that lies within us. And when we
Yeah,
tap into that wisdom, we truly understand our knowledge. We understand
yeah,
what it is for and how to use it because we're coming from the inside out. And we know really
yes,
what the importance of that wisdom and that knowledge is, not what that expectation is, because that
yeah,
is all a facade out there. It's an illusion that makes us
yeah.
delusional, right? So
True, true.
So this is why you have more post-traumatic stress. This is why you have more anxiety and depression, because everybody's trying to live up to this outside noise and they haven't tuned in and
No,
listened to in the music that lies within. And I don't mean you're going to pick up a guitar and start playing music. It's that the
yeah,
music is in the rhythm of your heart, your soul, your very essence of being.
yeah. And that music is quite literally sound.
Mhm.
Because,
And you need to feel it as well, not just hear it. You need to feel the sound, don't you?
yeah, you want to feel it. That's the thing. Because it's not just, it doesn't just come from one space inside your physical body. It comes from multiple different spaces
Yes.
inside your physical body. And that, and that is what creates that frequency, that energy
Mm,
field around you. So, and then that kind of, in my head, that feeds back into what do we feed the energy? What is the
mm,
fuel that we're
mhm.
putting into our body?
Yes.
And that determines what our frequencies are going to be
And what we're
when we
putting out.
step outside the door.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're an algorithm, right? We're all
Yeah.
quantum physics. We are all particles of the universe. We are all DNA. Like I have another gentleman, which I think you would really like, Tom Palladino. He's on in the same week as
Okay.
you. And he uses Nikola Tesla's technology. And he has the
Mm,
scalar light. And when you actually hone in and look at the scalar light, it is actually matching our DNA thread for thread. And that light
Wow.
changes our frequency and becomes our healing. The thing is,
Yes.
we are only touching the surface now, aren't we? Of truly
Yeah.
understanding what that divine energy is and how to use it and understanding the quantum spirituality. I have another show called Quantum Spirituality, and that is where we talk about that, where these devices or these instruments that we're given, they're there to ignite is something inside of us that we can't always do ourselves to match our energy, to help illuminate our energy even more. I think we're just beginning to wake up of what truly our purpose is here on this planet.
Yes. And I think my brain quite naturally wants to go into that space of thinking that we're here to help the universe, not just
Yes,
the planet.
yes. It's the
So
balance. It's the
it's
balance
the
of the energy.
balance.
Yeah.
Yes,
We don't want, the needle across the record. We don't want the violin going off. We want harmony, right?
precisely. I was recording a video yesterday, and in the audio recording itself, one of the first things that I say is that every time we speak and every time we listen to somebody, we're creating a little scratch on the universe
Hmm.
by
An
doing that.
imprint, an imprint.
Yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we're leaving that imprint there because it's basically saying that I was here, this is what I did, and I was a part of it because you're
Yeah.
part of a bigger reason, a bigger
Yes.
place.
I'll go even a step further, saying that even though we're doing the show pre-recorded right now, it's already being received by people without them understanding what they're hearing. And then they actually may then
Yeah,
be drawn to the show. And when
yeah,
they hear it, it becomes, ah, yeah, 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 because they've already felt
yeah,
it. Right? And this is how
precisely.
prayer works. When you pray for somebody with your heart and good intent, you're sending loving energy. And that loving energy, and especially when it's magnified, helps
Mm,
recalibrate or helps bring peace or bring something to that person or people or nations that are needing it. It's all
yeah,
an exchange of energy.
yes, it's all energy. And I think that's kind of where my research itself left off. When I submitted it all, I ended up with a couple of conclusions, and two of them was that sound is energy and energy is sound.
Mhm.
And as a byproduct from the research, the other big thing for me was that the energy equates to the stillness and the beginning of the universe,
Mhm.
and that we need to look at the relationship between stillness and the beginning. And the beginning can be anything because the beginning comes from the energy.
There is no
And
beginning or end. It's just a continuum.
no,
We're
well,
just
this is the
tapping in
thing.
or coming in at a certain point, right? It's our
Yeah,
beginning because we've entered, but there is no
yes,
ending because it is ad infinitum. It's infinity.
precisely. There's no ending, but there's always a starting point. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're looking on the continuum. There's
Yeah.
always a starting point. It's about what starting point do you work with,
Mm,
and what starting point do you want to tap into?
exactly. Now, do you find that for a lot of people with this, that, because we were talking about it a little bit, in your presentation yesterday, I do believe at the present moment we do have more anger, fear, depression, anxiety, um, because at the present moment I feel that the entire world is off kilter. There is, excuse me, no balance and harmony there right now. And I feel
Mm,
that um, for a lot of people that are dealing with that, they go, I just don't know why I'm like this because
mm,
I feel they're feeling the static. And that by
mm,
practicing this listening mode, going into this listening mode, it will help
mm.
take them out of that. anxiety, bring them the inner peace they need, and thus then the clarity of being able to move forward.
Y- yes. The idea behind it is to quite literally help people to go, okay, I can step away from my phone, I can step away from my television or my video games. I can go and sit somewhere and listen. And then by the time you get to the second step, you are quite literally taken away from all the clutter,
Mm,
the emotional clutter, but also the other sounds and noises that's going on around you. So by the time you hit step two, you're quite, you're gently kind of taken into a space where your brain feels like it can breathe
yeah.
and it has the space to kind of just let go and
Hmm.
focusing on something that it likes, something that
Mm,
it can handle. And that's the thing. If if you have only one sound that you can handle, you're going to tap into that every day
yeah.
because you want to thrive. You want to be in a space where you can do the things that you are required to do. So you keep on going back into that sound or space that you can handle.
Hmm.
And even if you can just do it for 1 minute or 2 minutes at a time, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's no rule that says that you have to do it for an hour.
Right.
I mean, you you work
Well,
with what you've got available to
and
you.
I think actually kind of doing it 1 or 2 minutes many times through the day is better serving than just an hour and then going back into the static and feeling a jolt. It becomes something I
Yeah.
think that helps rebuild your balance and keep that state of being on a more even
Yes.
field.
Yes. And I think that in the long run will have such a better outcome, not just for yourself, but for people in your life and in your work life as well, and in your community, because you're by creating that balance, you're transferring that balance into those other areas of your life. So essentially, you're building better communication as well
Yeah.
because you're fixing your energy.
You're coming from the intellect of your divine energy as
Yeah,
opposed to your head conditioning.
mm, exactly that. It's exactly that. Um, Again, it's for some reason I was making this video yesterday because I was told that people are not obliged to listen to anybody. Nobody really. There's nothing that says that we should pay attention to anything that somebody else is saying. And I so disagree with that.
Hmm.
And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because that act of listening is something that we were all born with.
Hmm.
And we need to be able to do it on a very fundamental level because all of us need it. Because when we're doing it, we're creating a sense of belonging and a sense of feeling validated.
Yeah.
And all of us need it. And in order to make that happen, we need to treat our energy like it's, the most precious thing because it's that energy that determines everything. It determines how we listen. It determines how we communicate. It determines how we are with other people.
How we
So,
feel, right? How we
yep,
trust, how
yep,
we receive, that's where the clarity comes from. That's where the creativity comes from. That's where the
precisely.
impossible comes from. Because if we just came from the brain, we would always talk ourselves out before we make it possible. But when you tap into
Yes.
that energy and you're in that flow, there is no such thing as impossible. There is just,
Yeah.
there must be a different way.
Yep. And and I think that's one of my biggest lessons that I'm going through at the moment is that there's a different way of doing it.
Mhm.
So keep doing the different way
Yeah.
because it's the different way that's going to get you to the next step.
Yes. Yeah, same old
So,
doesn't work, right? I mean, even
yeah,
if you've got something that fundamentally works for you, don't get stuck there. Use it as
yeah,
a baseline. All right. From there, how can you expand? How can you branch off? How can you explore? Don't just think, well, I'm okay now. I'm in one rhythm. No, we would like you to be a symphony. Right. So,
Yes.
be daring and branch out because we have as human beings limited ourselves so considerably. And now
Yeah.
stepping into that conscious energy, that higher frequency, that higher hertz, a higher
Yeah.
understanding, we're now beginning to open up and understand exactly what we're here for and open up to possibilities that we wouldn't have even begun to think of when we were in our
Yeah.
old state of being. So we're being woken up. We're being asked to step up. We're being asked to
Yeah.
change things up. We're being asked to grow up vibrationally. But we're also asked to grow up and stop putting barriers in front of yourself. There are techniques
Yes.
that you can use where you listen in. This is where the compass is inside. The heart is your generator. You can give away as much love as you like. Your heart just keeps generating more love the more you give out. Your spirit is
Yeah.
dying to get into action. Just give it the right information. And your mind is saying, okay, I'm here,
Precisely.
I'm here. What do you need from me? Right. But if we
Yes.
come from the mind, we're coming from data, and we don't always know which data is relevant in the moment, not unless you trust
Yeah.
it from the other way around.
Precisely. I when you're saying about the data around, it always makes me think about, all the development, quite literally, the building of new roads, the building of new
Hmm.
buildings and stuff. And I feel like that is it's very fabricated sets of information that is in some ways overwhelming for people. And I don't think people normally realize or truly realize how much that interferes with our daily function and daily life. That kind of sounds and noise has a bigger impact on us than what we realize,
Yeah.
basically.
Hmm.
And that determines, in a weird way, how we go from day to day to day.
Hmm.
And I think all of us need something to filter that out
Yes.
because it's a
Yes.
set of data that
Yes.
it's not natural.
I mean, what are there, 70,000 thoughts you go through a minimum a day? If you paid
Yeah.
attention to every thought, you'd combust. But how do
Yes.
you know which thought to pay attention to? Well, that's where your inner
Yes.
conscience will go, that thought is relevant. This one is just passing by, right?
Yeah.
And we're not using that other compass, that other instrument, our consciousness, our
Yeah.
divine energy. We're not using that to show us what is relevant. Why are we getting oversaturated, overloaded, over anxious? Because we're
Yeah.
thinking too much. Thoughts that
Yeah.
are just unrelevant, right? They're
Yeah.
unnecessary. But when we
Yeah.
trust that, that divine energy to guide us forward into what energy, that source energy, then we actually
Yeah.
understand which thoughts, okay, that thought is relevant. I can do something with that.
Yes. And I think that kind of takes me back to specifically people with ADHD. Reason being, you know, it's one thing to be surrounded by sound every day of your life,
Yeah,
but it's a completely different set of circumstances when your brain doesn't stop. You go to bed at night, you sleep, you think you're sleeping, but your brain is still running. Your brain is still working on something, and it never stops.
no.
So if we can help that brain to filter through some of that, so you can have 5 minutes,
Hmm.
just 5 minutes of clarity
Hmm.
in between all the stuff that's going on in your brain, that's that's like that's the best thing ever. Because for 5 minutes, you get the opportunity to just breathe. And then once that 5 minutes are up, you take a deep breath in and out, and then you can feel everything just chugging along again on all cylinders.
Exactly. You're
but
tuned
it
in.
helps.
It does.
It helps.
Yes. And the
That's
more
the
you do
thing.
it, the easier
Yeah.
it becomes, the more you know how to identify it,
Yes.
the more your little red flags go up. Oh, feeling a little stressed, into the silence, into the listening
Yes.
to the nothingness. Because I know it's so hard for you to understand. You can hear things in the nothingness, but when you get there, you'll understand, right? And
Yes.
it's you come out with what you need to know. We're not without all the other
Precisely.
crap that you don't need to know, right? So it's clarity. And
Yes.
the more you do it, the more it becomes your state of being, as opposed to something you're trying to condition yourself on. It becomes who you are.
Exactly that. It's
So what do
exactly
you do
that.
with your clientele to help them get there? What is, because you are, a music producer, film, etc. How do you help your clientele set that path?
That's a very good way of asking it. So I think that the best way to answer that is to say, I'm basically saying to them, take all the sounds around you and work with it. Don't expect from yourself to be perfect, but allow the sounds to show you what you can connect with, that you can focus in on for a certain amount of time.
Mhm,
That's basically, that's the crux of it.
mhm,
And then there's other bits and pieces around that, which becomes very interesting because everybody's experience of it is so unique. So take, for instance, somebody with ADHD. At some point, they're going to go into overload and they're going to
mhm,
need something to stop. So what I'm saying to my clients is go and sit outside. Don't take your phone with you if you can
mm,
help it, and listen. Listen to all the sounds and then take something, take one sound that you can listen to and focus in on, because by doing that, you're filtering out everything else.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
And by doing that, now we're gonna now we're gonna create a connection between your brain and your physical body. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna teach our body to absorb that sound.
mhm.
That's the long and short of it.
Yeah.
And and I think what I'm seeing now with the program is its applicability for individuals on the autism spectrum, but maybe lower down on the functioning scale,
Yeah.
where they may only be able to tolerate two or three different sounds. So instead of saying to them, listen to everything, you're
Hmm.
saying to them, pick one of those four sounds,
Yeah.
just listen to that, and allow that to be absorbed by your body and see how you feel by the end of it. See how that changes how you can then handle the rest of your day, because that allows that person to thrive. So you're giving that individual the opportunity to tap into something that they can handle. So their ability to then do what they do well in their space, that multiplies. You're
Yes.
multiplying, you're multiplying the happy scale, you're multiplying I can do this scale.
Yes. Yes.
So you kind of, you're taking the restrictions away
Hmm.
for them. And I think I'm focusing in on that because I wish somebody did that for me when I
Yeah.
was a kid. I
Yeah.
wish somebody said to me, all right, you like music. Let's focus in on that. You want to play guitar. You want to, write songs. Let's do that because that's going to make you happy. So let's feed that beast
Hmm.
instead of the
The
the stuff
anxiety or
that,
the, yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
nothing else really mattered. in
Exactly.
my world when I was growing up. So if I can do that for somebody
Hmm.
else, because I'm okay with having to parent myself, but if I can do that
Yeah.
for my clients and they get out of the program what helps them to thrive, then I've
Mhm.
done my job.
Exactly. Did you ever see the movie 2007 August Rush?
No, I haven't
Oh,
actually.
you have to get this movie. Okay, August Rush. It's a beautiful story
Okay.
of a kid um,
Hmm.
that knows his parents are alive, knows that he needs to find them, but he is a prodigy where everything he listens to becomes music.
Hmm.
And then as a young age, he actually conducts a symphony, and that actually brings his parents back together who thought he was dead. And it's a beautiful
Wow.
story. Robin Williams is in there as the villain who exploits him. But like he will listen to the grate as a car will go over a grate, and it turns into music for him. He listens to the cornfields and the wind running through it, and that becomes music to him. Everything is that frequency and that music, and then he puts it together and creates a symphony. Now, not everybody's going to be
Yeah.
capable in doing that, but in quintessence, we're asking you to do that. Which sound is
Yeah.
soothing to you? Which sound
Yes.
that you can hear over and over again that when you're feeling stressed out, you tap into because you know that calms you down? Which sound motivates you? Which sound lifts you up and has you get going, right? That inspires
Yes.
you. Learn to know those sounds that are there for you
Yes.
and how to channel and tune into it. But I think you will love that movie.
I'll definitely look into that because the the one of the big influences on my work is the 20th century music composers, and a lot of them, I can't say all of them, but a lot of them manipulated sound
Yeah.
to create something new. So John Cage is a very interesting man. He really looked into silence, and he's the composer who coined the phrase "there's no such thing as silence."
Hmm.
And at some point, there's a video of him on YouTube where he created a soundscape using everyday appliances.
Yeah.
So he would walk from a toaster to a blender to a bathtub to a tap, a
Hmm.
kitchen tap, and he would turn on all these different sounds that it was making, and it quite literally creates this soundscape.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
so it's like in a weird and wonderful way, it becomes a piece of music.
Yes.
And I think that definitely taps into the idea of, well, my ideas of and ideals around working with sound, because that is what we live with every day,
Mm.
and we need to learn how to work with it and navigate our life around it. And
And
and I
have it
think
work for
that's,
us. Have it work for
yes,
us. Yeah. Yeah.
instead of trying to work against it,
Yes.
you kind of want to, you again, it's that equilibrium
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're creating between yourself and the everyday sounds.
A rhythm of life. I'm one of these people when
Yeah.
I listen, I'm a visualer. So everything I hear turns into a vision.
Okay.
So for me,
Cool.
I've always got a movie going on in my head. So everything, every
Yeah.
sound, everything else becomes a vision. And I,
Yeah.
I, I see things and I dream in color, in sound, in taste, in touch. I'm one of those people.
Awesome.
So yes,
Yeah.
sometimes, like last night, the brain, the mind was off doing its thing and not letting me get into a deep sleep, right? Because it was off, and I've learned, don't fight it. It's on its journey, it's doing its thing. It will
Yeah.
download into something. I can't stop that vision, right? So I have to
Yeah.
let it go, have to let it flow and spend
Yeah.
it. But in some way, that vision will materialize somewhere else as something I need to do. And I think that is,
Yeah.
it's knowing, is it the sound that's then triggering the vision or triggering a feeling or triggering something else? Understand what
Yeah.
it's doing for you. And if it's doing something good for you,
Yes.
repeat that sound. It's like water when you're in the
Yeah.
shower using EFT or listening to music while you're in the shower or even singing in the shower. Why do people sing in the shower? A, it sounds
Yeah.
great, but it's also something to do with the water because the water is a conduit, right? And it's
Yes.
wonderful how it amplifies just from by running down your body, amplifies
Yeah.
whatever it is you're doing.
Yes. And Yeah, that's something interesting to talk about on on a few different levels because you're looking at the echoing effect of the sound when you're singing, but then there's also the different pitches of the water itself
Yes.
because every drop has a different pitch.
Yeah.
So that in itself has its own soothing effect.
Hmm.
So it's quite interesting. I actually had a conversation with somebody recently where I actually pointed out that it would be great to be able to record all the different pitches of the rain and
Hmm.
then using that to
Hmm.
create something that would actually sound like music.
There's interesting on, I think it was America's Got Talent, one of those shows where this choir came out and there were about 20 or 30 of them. And they started off at being the rain. And then they stamped their feet,
Yeah,
boom, boom, being the lightning, or, being the thunder. And then
yeah,
they just played all of that. We really to feel you in a rainstorm. And then they went into song, right? And it
yeah,
just shows how all of those beautiful sounds coming together and how it immerses ourselves into it. This is what sound does. Now, the
yeah,
interesting thing is you've got some people who can't hear. Right. There was a beautiful
yes,
guy. He was on America's Top Model and he won that. He's completely stone deaf. He doesn't even feel the vibration, right? He's toned stone deaf. And then he went on the celebrity dancing show. And they
yeah,
did a dance to the sound of silence. If you've ever watched it, folks, is it
mm,
celebrity dancing? I can't remember his name. But anyway,
yeah, no, I
what
can't.
he did, he completely and utterly tapped into her frequency.
Yep,
That particular dance made him win the show. It was so emotional. It was so
yeah,
beautiful. It was so connected. Now, this is somebody stone deaf, has no
yeah,
sound, but
yeah,
he uses the sound in a way of tapping into the energy and feeling it. That became the
yeah.
music for him.
Yes, it makes sense actually because of that multisensory
Hmm.
um aspect of listening. You don't need your ears to listen.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
don't need your eyes to listen. You
Or
just
your eyes
need
to see.
precisely,
Yes.
precisely
Yeah.
that entire multisensory thing. Is it's very interesting to see how it translates for people in general. So that's actually a really good example of how energy and even what you can feel with
Mm.
touch
Yes.
informs your
Yeah.
listening process.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very interesting.
You can walk into a room and you can feel the energy. It can be
Yeah.
completely silent and you can feel it. It's already, laid the baseline music for you. There may be no
Yes.
conversation. Some of the best wonderful moments is being with a loved one in a room, nobody speaking, just
Mm,
being present with each other, just being with each other's energy, letting that energy
yeah.
leave your body and dance, right? It's just so beautiful because you're speaking
Yeah.
volumes in that time.
Well, this is the thing, and I that's one big thing that I do talk about in the extra content that I make, and that is that the most important information you'll receive from somebody is when they are not speaking. You need to pay attention to what's happening in that space because everything you need is in there.
Hmm. That's the point. Be in that
Yeah,
empty space and allow it to be filled with what it needs to be filled by without dictating what it is, but allowing.
yeah,
Allow your senses to tell you what it is you need to feel in this moment, whether it is
yeah,
touch, taste, sound,
yeah,
feeling. Allow those senses to say, I need this. Go into the silence, go into the
yeah,
nothingness. Let me present
yeah,
what you need right now. Our senses know what we need. We've got to
yeah,
stop having our brain override that with what we think it needs and allow our
yeah.
senses to tell us what it truly needs.
Yes. I think that also for me goes back to our intuition and being willing to step away from all the technological interference and advancements because we need to learn to unplug
Hmm.
and not just unplug, but we need to, it's like I'm finding that people need to learn how to do the fundamental things in life. And the fundamental things in life for me is listening and how we're talking with one another and how we're answering questions.
Hmm.
That's a big thing for me, and that's kind of been a big thing for me for a long time. I mean, I watch politicians, um, skirting around questions, and they're not answering the question.
No.
And it's a good example of a lot of people doing the same thing, whether they're politicians or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
How do we
Avoidance.
answer questions?
Hmm.
And how we answer questions is determined how we listen, and how we listen is determined by how much we're tapped into our own energy and our own intuition.
Our
And
own
all of that,
authenticity as well, right?
yes, and
Hmm.
being real, be
Hmm.
real, be real.
Hmm.
Oh, I've got a thing about that. Be real.
Yes.
Um, it goes back to my latest video, and I know I'm not shamelessly trying to plug it, but
Don't be
I
shameless. That's what you're here for.
I actually say in that I actually say that if you know you do not have the capacity to listen to someone, don't pretend to listen because you're doing more harm than good. Be courteous and say, I can't do this today.
Hmm.
Maybe we can talk tomorrow.
Yes.
It's just, be
Yeah.
real and be honest, because if you cannot be those two things, then we need to look at what's causing the issue.
Exactly. Last week I was sick, and so I had to postpone a couple of shows because I was knocked for six, grandchildren giving me their wonderful bugs from daycare. And, they're very generous with those. And it knocked me for six. I couldn't lift my head off the pillow and I had to postpone. And people were very graceful by it. But it's like I felt guilt. And so, of course, I do my own
Mm,
show every week where I talk about how I'm feeling. And it's like,
mm,
illness apology. Why are we feeling guilty? Because we have to change something or something came up. And if somebody isn't
mm,
understanding of that, it's different as, oh, I forgot. That's different. That's callous. But if it's a
yeah,
genuine thing, why are we not understanding and more compassionate about it? And why do we feel guilty? Because society
mm,
has told us that we are
yeah,
less than for doing so, instead of in honoring yourself and what your body, what your health, what your mental health needs at that time, so you can be better for someone down the road. Right. And we
yeah,
we need to put ourselves first. And it's we need to stop apologizing for what we
yeah,
need. And if it's less, I mean, I do this, I interview people all around the world. I do at least 24 shows a month, right? And I've got
yeah.
3,600 shows there. I've been doing it 12 years. But I'm
Wow.
actually an introvert off camera, though people don't believe it. And I actually love to live in silence and just in nothingness, just letting thoughts go
Yeah,
in and out through my mind, right? And
yeah,
it's it's know who you are, know how you
yeah,
tick, know what you need. I'm getting
yeah,
too much. I need to channel into this piece. I
yeah,
need to really kind of exert myself here. So let's change channel and find the illumination that can allow me to step out of myself. Know yourself and how to tune in to your silence so you can hear what you
yeah,
need in that next moment.
yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, you've said it all in there. Definitely. I mean, you have to know, because
Yeah,
if you don't know, then it means that there's essential parts missing.
exactly. And if things like guilt or shame or blame or inadequacy or feeling less than come up, understand that's an exterior thing.
Yeah,
That is a conditional exterior outside living thing. You are enough, but maybe what you haven't done is tapped into your enoughness. This is your journey to
yeah,
go in, to discover those channels, to discover those musical chords inside of you. What serves you? What allows you to grow? What allows you to learn? What allows your essence to become? And honor yourself
yeah,
because we are all an instrument here. We need to learn how to play it well as a soloist, but join an
Yeah.
orchestra in harmony, each one of us in our strengths, to make that
Yeah.
symphony transcend together.
Yes. And that's what you want to do. You want to create something with meaning because that's essentially what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
creating meaning.
And isn't
And
that
I
what we
think,
want? We want to have a meaningful purpose. We want
well,
to feel that
yes,
we count for something. We're here for a reason.
precisely. And I think a lot of people miss that. I think a lot of people miss that because they're so busy chasing the superficial stuff.
Yeah.
They're so busy chasing money and power and, the next best thing, the fear of missing out,
Yes.
when we should be chasing meaning.
Yeah,
We
and
should be,
I'm at that stage. I'm 69 now. If you talk to me money first, six figures first, this first, I'm sorry you're not in my channel. If you talk
yeah,
to me, I'm intrigued, all right,
yeah,
or I would really love to know, can we connect? My doors are wide open, right?
yes,
So let's look at the
precisely.
enrichment and the abundance that is
Yeah,
within us. That is our
yes,
true currency. Money
precisely.
is just a transition, an exchange. It is not, it
Yeah,
has its own energy, yes, but you
oh,
are
yes,
enriched, you are abundant. Why are you not tapping into that own enrichment?
precisely. And I think that's on the individual. I think, that's something that only the person can answer for themselves, why they make certain decisions when it comes to, what what is what is their definition of meaning or abundance. I
Yes.
think I don't really want to expand on something that's quite individualistic. I'd rather focus on the effect our behavior and our communication has on our communities,
Yeah.
because I think that's more important um, than the monetary things that is being chased.
When we are abundant within ourselves, we enrich our community,
Well, this is the thing.
right?
Yes.
There's a wonderful gentleman I interviewed out of Germany, and he has a company called Pure Necessity, and he works with companies and governments about switching the whole climate around what money is and what profit is. And
Yeah.
his philosophy is people, planet for profit, not profit at the expense of people and planet. Right. And
Well,
just switching
precisely.
that thinking around. When we enrich the human being, when we enrich the soil in which we stand on, when we
Yeah.
enrich the abundance of our energy and our enlightenment, we are feeding each other in
Yeah.
such a transformative way that we don't
Yeah.
have war, we don't have hate, we don't have dictatorship because they don't belong.
Yeah.
And it's not just an
Precisely.
ideology, it is actually an energetic, scientific
Yeah.
proof. We've just got to embrace it.
Yeah. And listening is a big part of it. It's
Yes.
such a big part of it. We
Now,
can't
yep.
sorry, we can't make those things happen if we
No.
can't listen, if we don't know how to listen.
Yes, exactly. Now, on that note, you've got the listening
Yes.
program workbook, an ebook
Yes.
PDF, which is only $30. And there's a
Yes.
link here that people can click onto it to get to it. And
Yes.
so they can start off with that. That kind of gives them that process of stepping into that
Yes.
listening program. Now, if somebody wants to talk to you one-on-one or go, I need help in doing this, can you guide me? What's the process that you go through?
The the easiest process with that is flick me an email
Hmm.
and in the subject line just put one-to-one listen program guidance
Hmm.
and write me a note and I'll get back to you. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
And of course, your
Um,
email is HS. Botha, Botha productions at
Productions.
gmail.com. So HS
Yes.
Botha productions at gmail.com.
Yes. And that's also on the website, in the contact section, easy to find. So definitely that's definitely the best place to find me. And then we'll take it from there because
And the
I'm
website is
the
he
listen program.
thelistenprogram.com. So
Yes.
thelistenprogram.com. And of course you've
Yes.
got things on Spotify,
Yeah.
and you're on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and
Yeah.
SoundCloud and YouTube. And of course you've got your calendar all here too. So all people have to do is simply put in your name and selfdiscoverywisdom.com if they're listening to this, and Dr. Sean Botha, that's Sean, and
Yeah.
all of his information will come up there. Um,
Yeah.
People don't realize that actually the answers to our problem are actually quite simple. If
Yeah.
we could switch off all these other expectations and dictations and tune
Yeah.
in, it is simple because when you start using it, focusing on one sound at a time. How does it make me feel? Is it calming?
Yeah.
Is it illuminating? Is it,
Yeah.
transcending? Which sound in that silence do you need at the present moment? And you learn
Yeah.
to be able to tap into that at any time of the day, whenever you need it. It becomes the frequency you are resonating on. And then you start seeing other
Yeah.
things open up for you and other things you
Yes.
begin to see and feel and understand.
Yes. And it's amazing to I think to see how it changes your perception, not just of other people, but your perception of yourself.
Yes.
But at the
Therefore,
same,
other people,
yeah,
because you change the perception of self. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and some people may find that that they're they're becoming a bit more sensitive to things that they haven't noticed before.
Hmm.
So, for instance, they may find that, a couple of weeks down the line that they may be able to see and feel the differences
Hmm.
in how their body responds to certain um,
Daily
sets of data,
things.
yeah,
Yeah.
data
Yeah.
and stuff that's coming in.
Hmm.
So, and it's just as an example, the other week I was chasing down resources that I really needed, and I could actually quite literally feel my
Hmm.
energy levels spike up and down. And I
Hmm.
was like, whoa, this is intense.
Hmm.
And I realized that this isn't something that I can necessarily control 24 hours a day, but it was
Hmm.
interesting to see how it
Yes,
made my brain feel.
exactly. And this, people talk a lot about manifestation. I'm going to say this, that when you are in the rhythm of life, you're in the understanding, the silence and the stillness that speaks to you. You truly then know what it is you want to manifest, and that frequency will go out into being able
Yeah,
to manifest it. When
precisely.
it wants to manifest it, it has no time schedule. Um,
No.
but it isn't telling the universe what you want. You're telling the universe on what frequency you want to be on, how you want to feel, because the
Yeah.
universe works by frequency. And if I want to feel this, I'll give case in point. I had to write my own book, my own memoir. I did it, got it out end of December.
Yeah.
Then I had the Forgotten Children book, which is an anthology that I put together, taking the podcast even further, 15 people on chapters. One of them is music and how important music is to children and their
Yes.
therapy. Um, but and then this manifested. Then I got to be in
Yeah.
two other books. Then I wanted a home where I can call a sanctuary. My kids bought me a home. And that, like my son's getting married and I'm turning 70. And all of a sudden, all of the things, can you please give me, universe? This is how I'd
Mm.
like to feel. The universe goes, are
Yeah.
you ready? Boom, 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 boom. Right?
Yeah.
Because I was sending out the right frequency. That's the bottom
Yeah.
line of it.
Yeah. And I think that that's the thing. It's about being ready. It's
Yes.
about being ready.
Yes.
So what's happening is I do want to include the fact that I am now looking at including some extra resources for the
Hmm.
program. So, a journal. So there's a couple of
Good point.
things just in the background being finalized,
Hmm.
but also I'm looking now at creating a couple of soundscapes
Hmm.
for for people on the autism spectrum who may not be able to tap into everyday sounds.
Right.
So that's definitely something that's now kind of in the process of being developed.
I
So
would like to test that on Down syndrome as well, because when we play
yeah,
music or he gets anywhere near a little piano, he's
yeah,
not even one, he goes nuts. He goes nuts for music. The body is just going
yeah,
and he's just right into it. So, be interesting to
yeah,
know, how it affects children with Down syndrome as well.
yeah. So in the meantime, there is the workbook, but there's also the guided audio
Hmm.
that's available. Um, so people are welcome to have a look at that. And then of course there's the YouTube channel where there's a lot of extra content coming out around the listen program, and there is heaps more coming from musicians as well,
Excellent.
which is kind of it's still in the planning phase.
Hmm.
And then there is a couple of more announcements coming towards the middle of the year because
Great.
there's more
You're on a
work
roll.
around. Well, definitely, there's
Yeah.
more work around the listening program itself that can be very useful for people in the defense forces.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
Now, it's interesting because I'd love to know more about that when it comes out because I interview a lot of veterans. And another channel I have is called For the Love of Music. And one of the reasons why I love interviewing musicians, never mind the music, is the fact they are so in tune with their heart, the soul, and their spirit. They are the music. This is an extension of them. This is the expression of them. And they are so
yeah,
true to who they are. It's absolutely beautiful. Music to
yeah.
my ears. This has been a
Awesome.
great conversation. We've spoken for nearly 2 hours, so we've really gone in deep, and there was a lot to unpack here. But the bottom
True.
line of it is that, quite honestly, and it's called thelistenprogram.com, and we don't know how to listen. It is listening, just being still enough, out of head, out of dictation, trusting your universal energy, going
Yeah,
into that silent void and allowing what presents itself. And then I love the fact you're adding the journal because then journal about it afterwards. This
yeah,
sound made me feel this way. This
yeah.
sound made me feel that way. These then become your chords and your own
Yes,
musical instrument of knowing
yeah,
what you need to go and do at any given time because it had this effect on you. That's
yes,
brilliant.
precisely. So there's a lot more coming. So it's just a matter of
Step by step.
finding me. Yes. So all the links and all the ways to find me is on the website. So it's pretty much straightforward.
Yes. And people can keep going back and looking at what you're doing and
Yeah,
following, and that's the whole point. The point is,
yeah,
folks, you don't need anything big and fancy. There are so many things that can help you tune in. Once you tune
yeah,
in, you listen to one look, play it over and over again and for a while, and they go, I'm now ready for another. Okay,
yeah,
universe, what do you want me to hear now? And you're right,
yeah,
household things, nature things, children laughing, ocean washing up against the shore, wind rustling through the leaves. All of these are speaking to you. And if something sounds
precisely.
louder than usual, pay attention.
Yes, I have to agree with that. Pay attention
Yes.
because there's something is something is happening and it's happening for a reason.
Don't try and work it out with your brain. Work
Yeah,
it out with your intellectual,
yeah,
divine brain, right?
yeah,
Which is your spirit, which is your consciousness. That consciousness will tell you what that means. It will come to you naturally. So you don't
yeah,
go, well, what do you mean? What does this mean? What does, no, now you're going down the rabbit hole. Just go,
yeah.
that sounds wonderful. I'm looking forward to understanding.
Yes, I think that's a good way of saying it. Definitely. I agree with that.
There's so much that we
Awesome.
still don't know, and there's so much we're still learning. And quite honestly, our forefathers before we had machines. Before we had all of these things, the uh, the shepherd, in the fields with, they knew how to read the weather. They knew how to listen to the birds, listen to the other animals. They knew how to read things because they listened and paid attention. And they could speak volumes of what was going on because they were tuned in. So what we're asking people to do is listen, but listen
Yeah,
in, listen from the inside out, not from the head, and certainly not from the outside in.
yeah, that's true.
Thank you so much for sharing here
Awesome.
today. This has been
It's a
great.
pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful information. Do look for that movie, August Rush. I think you're going to absolutely love it.
Oh, definitely.
You will definitely get it. And anybody else that's trying to actually understand, it's a good movie to watch. So until next time, folks, remember all the answers are within if you just tune in. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.